If you tease me again, I swear to God I'll make you regret every second you spent playing with me. Minjun's voice was low, deadly, vibrating with barely contained control as he stepped closer, backing me against the wall of the apartment hallway. We'd been playing this game for 8 months. Stolen glances in the laundry room, accidental touches when we both reached for the mailbox keys, lingering conversations by the elevator that stretched until one of us had to leave for work. He was my neighbor, the soft-spoken guy with the apologetic smile who helped Mrs. Kowalski carry her groceries upstairs and fixed the building manager's printer when it jammed. The perfect gentleman who never crossed lines. Except now his hand was braced against the concrete wall beside my head, his body close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off him, smell the faint scent of expensive cologne mixed with something sharper, whiskey, maybe, or danger, and there was nothing gentlemanly in his dark eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about," I managed, though my voice came out breathier than I intended. His other hand came up to trap me completely, caging me in. "You don't know what you're doing when you wear those scrubs that hug every curve? When you stretch to reach the top shelf in the mailroom right in front of me? When you hum those old songs while doing laundry like you're not driving me insane? When you bite your lip while we're talking like you're thinking about things you shouldn't be thinking about?" My heart hammered against my ribs. This was Minjun, sweet MJ, who left coffee outside my door before my early hospital shifts with a little sticky note that said, "Survive today." Minjun, who'd never been anything but respectful and kind for 8 months, who asked about my patients without pushing when I couldn't talk about the hard days, who spoke Korean to his mother on the phone in that gentle, reverent tone that made my chest ache. Except the man standing in front of me now wasn't sweet at all. "Okay?" I whispered against his mouth. "No more pretending." The words barely left my lips before he was kissing me again, deeper this time. One hand fisted in my hair while the other splayed possessively across my lower back. When he finally pulled away, we were both breathing hard, and his apartment door was somehow open behind me. I didn't remember him unlocking it. The space swallowed me whole the moment I stepped inside. It was nothing like I'd imagined during all those months of wondering. No clutter, no personality, no half-eaten takeout containers or stacks of design books. Just clean lines, expensive furniture, and a view of downtown LA that probably cost more per month than my entire student loan debt. The kind of minimalism that wasn't about aesthetics, it was about control. "MJ, this place is," I started, but he was already pulling me toward the bedroom, his mouth on my neck, and coherent thought became optional. His hands were everywhere, urgent and demanding, peeling away layers of clothing like he'd been holding himself back for so long that gentleness wasn't an option anymore. And maybe he had been. Maybe we both had been. When we finally tumbled onto his bed, black sheets, military corners, of course, I was already lost in the heat of him, the weight of his body pressing me into the mattress. But then my palm slid across his ribs, and I felt it. A puckered ridge of scar tissue, thick and raised, just below his left side. My fingers stilled. "What?" "Don't," he said roughly, catching my wrist. But I'd already seen it, traced the shape of it. Not a surgical scar. Not an accident. A bullet wound. I pulled back enough to look at him, really look at him, and that's when I saw the others. Faint white lines across his knuckles, too precise to be from anything innocent. A thin scar along his collarbone that disappeared beneath the ink of his tattoos. Tattoos I'd never seen before because sweet MJ always wore long sleeves, even in LA heat. My gaze drifted past him to the nightstand. A handgun sat there, matte black and casual, like it belonged. Like it was as normal as a phone charger or a glass of water. Beyond it, his laptop screen glowed with Korean characters scrolling in rapid succession. Not design software. Something else. Something that looked like surveillance feeds and encrypted messages. "Naomi." His voice was soft now, almost resigned. He sat up, running a hand through his hair, and I saw the tension in his shoulders, the way a man holds himself when he knows the mask is slipping and there's no putting it back on. I should have run. Every instinct I'd honed through years of late-night shifts in rough neighborhoods screamed at me to get out, get away from this stranger wearing my neighbor's face. But I didn't move. "Who are you?" I asked quietly. He looked at me then, and his eyes were empty of everything except a bone-deep weariness. "Not the man you thought I was." I was pulling my scrub top back on when Minjun suddenly stood, putting 3 feet of distance between us like I'd burned him. His jaw was tight, his entire body rigid with something that looked like regret. "This was a mistake," he said flatly. "I shouldn't have touched you." The words hit like a slap. "Excuse me? You should go." He wouldn't look at me, just stood there staring at the floor-to-ceiling windows like he could see through them to something I couldn't. "Please, Naomi. Just go." The whiplash was dizzying. 1 minute he was kissing me like I was oxygen, the next he was dismissing me like I was a regret he needed to erase. Anger bubbled up, hot and sharp, replacing the confusion. "You know what? That's fine." I grabbed my bag, shoving my feet into my sneakers without bothering to tie them. "Thanks for the clarity, MJ. Or whoever the hell you actually are." I was halfway to the door when it exploded inward. Not opened. Exploded. The reinforced steel door I'd noticed earlier slammed back on its hinges with enough force to crack the drywall, and 3 men poured into the apartment like a tactical unit. They moved with military precision, weapons drawn, fanning out to secure the space in seconds. The man leading them was older than Minjun, maybe mid-40s, with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow and eyes that had seen too much death to be surprised by anything. He was speaking rapid Korean, his tone clipped and urgent, and Minjun responded in the same language, his voice completely different now. Authoritative. Cold. Nothing like the soft, apologetic neighbor I'd known. "Youngnim," the scarred man said, switching to English mid-sentence like he'd just remembered the language existed. "The shipment from Busan was intercepted. The Park faction is moving on our territory in Koreatown, and we have confirmation that Lee's crew is planning something. He needs to be handled. Tonight."
"홍님, boss."
My brain struggled to process what I was hearing. Minjun wasn't responding, wasn't correcting them. He just stood there, his posture shifted into something lethal and controlled, and nodded once. Then the scarred man's eyes landed on me. His expression went from professional to glacial in a heartbeat. He looked at me the way you'd look at a problem that needed solving, quickly and permanently. "Youngnim," he said slowly, his English heavily accented but precise. "Who is the civilian, and why is she in your private space?" The silence that followed felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to see if someone would push. Minjun moved before I could even process what was happening. 1 second he was across the room, the next he was between me and the armed men, his body a wall of muscle and threat. When he spoke, his voice was pure ice. "그녀는 내 보호 아래 있다." The Korean rolled off his tongue like a death sentence, each syllable precise and final. The scarred man, Tae-sik, I assumed, stiffened. "Youngnim, she's a civilian. A security breach. You know protocol."
"내 거야."
Minjun cut him off, his tone dropping into something so dangerous that even I felt it crawl down my spine. Then, in English, presumably for my benefit, "She's mine. Under my protection. That makes her untouchable. You understand." The other 2 men exchanged glances, but Tae-sik's expression remained carefully neutral. Professional. "Of course, Youngnim. We understand." He looked at me then, and I saw the calculation in his eyes, measuring, assessing, determining whether I was an asset or a future problem. "Welcome to the family, Miss Clark," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Dr. Naomi Clark." Something flickered across his face. A doctor. Interesting choice. He turned back to Minjun, speaking rapid Korean again, and whatever he said made Minjun's jaw tighten. After a tense exchange, Tae-sik nodded curtly and gestured to his men. They filed out as quickly as they'd entered, the broken door hanging useless on its hinges. The silence they left behind was suffocating. "Start talking," I said. My hands were shaking, so I crossed my arms to hide it. "Right now. No more lies." Minjun's shoulders dropped, the lethal commander persona sliding away to reveal something raw underneath. Exhaustion, resignation, maybe even relief. "My name is Park Min-jae," he said quietly, moving to pour himself a drink from the bar cart I'd never noticed before. Whiskey neat. He downed it in one swallow. "Not Minjun Park, graphic designer from Seoul. That person doesn't exist." "Then who does?" He set the glass down with a soft click. "I'm the West Coast Operations Commander for the Biko clan. White Tiger Syndicate if you want the English translation. We're one of the oldest and most powerful Korean criminal organizations operating in the United States." He finally looked at me, and his eyes were dead. "Drug trafficking, weapons smuggling, money laundering, contract killings, we handle it all. And I run the entire West Coast territory." The floor felt like it was tilting. "You're a
Gangster.
criminal, monster. Pick your word, Naomi. They all fit." He laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "That coffee I left for you every morning? I was coming back from overseeing shipments at the port. Those late nights working on design projects, body disposal, and territory negotiations. Every single smile, every kind word, it was all a lie built on blood money. I should have been terrified, should have been running. But all I could think about was that first question, the one that mattered most. Why?" My voice cracked. "Why me?" Minjun looked at me like I'd asked him to explain gravity. "Because you were real," he said simply. "I came to this building 8 months ago for business. We own half the commercial properties in this neighborhood, fronts for moving product and cash. I was supposed to stay 2 weeks, establish oversight, and leave." He ran a hand through his hair, and for a moment he looked young, vulnerable. "Then I heard you singing Lauryn Hill at 2 a.m. while doing laundry, and I made the mistake of looking." "Mistake?"
Yes.
"Because you looked at me like I was human. Not a boss, not a weapon, not a legacy I never asked for. Just a guy who was also doing laundry at a ridiculous hour." His voice dropped. "Do you know what that's like? To be seen as just a person when you've been a commodity since birth." I didn't know what to say. Couldn't reconcile the man in front of me with the criminal commander who just had armed men calling him boss. "So I stayed," he continued. "Extended my assignment indefinitely. Built the neighbor persona so I could keep seeing you without," he stopped, jaw working, "without contaminating you with what I am. And now you're contaminated anyway." The bitterness in his voice was acid. "Taesik saw you. That means my enemies will eventually know about you. Which means you have exactly 2 choices, Naomi, and they both destroy your life as you know it." My stomach dropped. "What choices?"
Run.
"Disappear. New identity, new city, new life. We have people who can make Dr. Naomi Clark vanish completely." He met my eyes. "You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, waiting for the day someone realizes who you used to be and decides you know too much. Loose ends get tied up permanently in my world. Or you stay." His voice went rough. "You accept my public claim. Become mine in every way that matters to the Biko clan. Which makes you untouchable by syndicate rules. No one harms the boss's woman without declaring war. But it also makes you the perfect leverage. My greatest weakness walking around with a target on her back. A gilded cage or a death sentence. Those were my options. Some choice," I said bitterly. "I never said it was fair. Nothing about this is fair." He moved closer, his hand hovering near my face like he wanted to touch me, but didn't have the right anymore. "If you run, I'll give you every resource I have. Money, documents, protection until you're clear. I'll never look for you. And if I stay?" His eyes darkened. "Then you're mine, Naomi.
No have qua, no pretending."
The Biko clan protects its own, but they also own their own. I stayed. Not because the alternative was better, but because some self-destructive part of me couldn't walk away from the man who'd left coffee at my door for 8 months, even knowing it was all built on lies. Minjun made a single phone call in rapid Korean, and suddenly my apartment across the hall became irrelevant. My things would be moved. I would live here now. With him. In this sterile fortress that smelled like expensive whiskey and secrets. He left at midnight, kissing my forehead like I was something precious he was afraid to break. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me. Where are you going? To handle Lee. His voice was flat. Empty. I'll be back before dawn. He wasn't. The sun was threatening the horizon when I finally heard his key in the lock. I'd fallen asleep on his couch in my scrubs, too wired to actually rest, and jerked awake at the sound. Minjun stood in the doorway, and I knew immediately something was wrong. His white dress shirt was spattered with dark stains that could only be blood. His knuckles were split and bleeding, and there was a look in his eyes. Empty, dead, like he'd left part of himself somewhere else and come back hollow. Jesus. I breathed, the doctor and me overriding everything else. Sit down. Let me see your hands. He obeyed silently, sinking onto the couch like his strings had been cut. I grabbed the first aid kit from under his bathroom sink. Of course, he had a fully stocked trauma kit, and knelt between his legs to assess the damage.
Lee.
I asked quietly, cleaning the blood from his knuckles.
Gone.
Won't be a problem anymore.
Gone.
Not arrested. Not scared off.
Gone. Dead.
Because Minjun had killed him. My hands didn't shake. They should have, but they didn't. I'd spent too many years in trauma bays, covered in other people's blood, for my body to react to the sight of it anymore. But this was different. This wasn't a patient. This was the man I'd chosen to stay with, and the blood on his hands wasn't from trying to save a life. It was from taking one. You should be disgusted, he said softly, watching me work. You should be running. I looked up at him. Are you disgusted?
No.
This is what I do. What I've always done. His voice was matter-of-fact. Clinical. I'm not a good man, Naomi. I kill people who cross my family. I move drugs that destroy lives. I launder money for cartels and warlords. This is who I am. I know. And God help me, I did. We didn't talk about Lee after that night. Minjun showered, burned his clothes in the incinerator chute, and came back to bed like he'd just finished a long day at the office. Maybe in his world, he had. I managed 3 hours of fitful sleep before my shift at the hospital, and when I came home 16 hours later, exhausted and covered in surgical grime, he was waiting with Thai takeout and that same careful distance he'd maintained since his men had burst in. Tell me about your family, I said over pad thai that tasted like cardboard in my mouth. If I'm in this, I need to know what I'm in. Minjun set down his chopsticks. My father is Park Dae-young. He runs all American operations for the Biko clan, everything from Seattle to San Diego, east to Nevada. He's not the supreme leader, but he might as well be for this continent. What he says is law. And you? I'm his only son. His legacy. His weapon. The words were bitter. I was 8 years old the first time I watched him kill someone. 12 when I made my first kill. By 16, I was running enforcer crews. This life isn't something I chose. It's something I was born into. You could leave. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You don't leave the Biko clan. You die in it, or you die trying to escape it. There is no retirement plan, no peaceful exit. My father would hunt me himself before he let me shame the family name. What about love? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Does that exist in your world? His eyes found mine, and something cracked in his expression. Love is a weakness in my world. The moment my enemies know I care about someone, that person becomes a weapon to use against me. That's why you're in danger now. Why you'll always be in danger, as long as you're mine. Then why claim me? Why not just let me run? Because I'm a selfish bastard who's wanted you since the moment I saw you humming Lauren Hill, and I finally stopped pretending I'm noble enough to let you go. 2 days later, Minjun sat me down at his kitchen island with a glass of wine I couldn't drink and told me about Robert Hayes.
Third floor, he said.
Apartment 3F. Moved in 4 years ago. Worked in accounting for a medical supply company. My stomach clenched. I knew Robert. Sweet older man, always held the elevator. Asked about my residency. What about him? The medical supply company is one of our fronts. We use it to move pharmaceutical-grade opioids and synthetic drugs. Robert had access to the books, and he got greedy. Started skimming. Small amounts at first, then larger. By the time we caught him, he'd stolen close to $200,000.
Jesus.
That's why I came to this building. Not for you, for him. My father ordered a personal handling. Make an example. Can't have accountants thinking they can steal from the Biko clan. His voice was clinical, detached. I was supposed to do it the week I moved in. Past tense. Was supposed to. But you didn't.
No.
Because I got distracted by a woman doing laundry at 2 a.m. And then I kept getting distracted. For 8 months.
He looked at me.
My father's patience has limits. I have to handle Robert.
Soon.
Probably tonight. The wine turned to poison in my stomach. You're telling me this because? Because you have a choice. You can ask me not to do it. Ask me to let him run. Give him a chance. Minjun's expression was unreadable. I'll do it. I'll let him go.
But it'll cost me.
My father will see it as weakness, and weakness in our world gets you killed. It might cost me my position. Might cost me everything. Why would you do that? Because you asked. Because you're mine, and that means something. He leaned forward. But you need to understand what you're asking for. Robert will run, but he'll never be safe. Eventually, someone else will find him and finish the job. And the blood will still be there, just on different hands. I wanted to save him. Wanted to believe one life could be spared in this nightmare. But I also understood what Minjun was offering. My conscience for his survival. Do what you have to do, I whispered. But don't tell me when.
Don't tell me how.
If I'm going to love you and live with what you are, I need separation. I need to be Dr. Clark at the hospital and Naomi here. Those two people can't meet, or I'll break. He nodded slowly. I can give you that. Minjun's men moved my belongings on a Tuesday. I came home from a double shift to find my entire apartment packed, transported, and unpacked in his space like I'd always lived there. My clothes in his closet. My books on his shelves. My toothbrush next to his. We have dinner with my father tonight, he said when I walked in. 7 o'clock. His estate in the Hollywood Hills. Men like Park Dae-young call this legacy. Power built on fear, obedience, and blood. If you don't believe fathers should turn their children into weapons, hit like. Only people who worship power excuse men like him. My exhaustion evaporated, replaced by pure dread. Tonight, he wants to meet the woman who's disrupted his son's focus. Wants to assess whether you're an asset or a liability that needs permanent removal. Minjun said it so casually, like he was discussing the weather. Wear something nice. Conservative. And for God's sake, Naomi, do not show fear. He'll smell it like blood in the water. Park Dae-young's estate was a fortress disguised as modern architecture. All clean lines, bulletproof glass, and security cameras that tracked our car from the gate to the front entrance. Armed men in suits flanked every doorway, their eyes flat and assessing as we entered. The man himself waited in a dining room that could seat 20, but was set for 3. He was older than I'd expected, maybe late 60s, with silver hair and the kind of face that had forgotten how to smile decades ago. When he looked at me, I felt dissected. Dr. Clark. His English was perfect, unaccented. My son tells me you're a surgeon. Surgical resident, sir. I have another year before I complete my training. I kept my voice steady. Professional. A healer. He sipped his wine. Interesting choice for my son. He destroys lives, and you save them. Quite the philosophical contradiction. Perhaps that's why it works, sir. Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? Approval? It was impossible to tell. Perhaps. Tell me, Dr. Clark, do you understand what it means to be loyal to this family? This was the test. The moment everything hinged on. I looked at Minjun, at the man who'd lied to me for months, but whose hands had shook when he touched my face, and made my choice. I understand loyalty means standing by someone even when it costs you everything. It means accepting who they are, not who you wish they'd be. And it means that when I say I'm with Minjun, I'm saying I'm with your family. For better or worse. De-Jong studied me for a long, terrible moment. Then he nodded once. Welcome to the family, Dr. Clark. My son's protection extends from me personally. No one will harm you without answering to me. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt like I'd just signed away my soul and blood. Robert Hayes's obituary ran in the LA Times 3 days after the dinner. Heart attack in his apartment. Tragic.
Sudden.
The building held a small memorial in the lobby, and I stood there with the other tenants, listening to people share stories about a man who died because he'd stolen from the wrong people. Minjun stood beside me, playing the concerned neighbor perfectly. No one suspected. No one knew. I made it to his apartment before I vomited. He held my hair back while I emptied my stomach into the toilet, the doctor in me recognizing the physiological response to moral trauma while the rest of me just wanted to disappear. When I was done, I sat on the cold bathroom tile and stared at the wall. I knew him, I finally said. He asked about my residency 2 weeks ago. Told me his daughter was thinking about medical school. I know. Minjun's voice was quiet. He had 3 kids. 2 still in college. His wife died 5 years ago. And you killed him anyway. Yes.
No excuses. No justifications.
Just the truth. Stark and brutal. I should have left then. Should have called whatever remained of my self-respect and walked away from this man and his blood-soaked world. But I didn't. Because somewhere between the lies and the revelations, between the coffee at my door and the bodies he'd left in his wake, I'd fallen in love with a monster. I can't do this, I whispered. I know. He knelt beside me on the bathroom floor, and his hands were gentle when they cupped my face. If you want to leave, I'll help you disappear. New name, new city, new life. I'll make sure you're safe. I don't want to leave. The words tasted like ash. I want to not love you. I want to be horrified and disgusted and strong enough to walk away. But I can't. Even knowing what you are, what you've done, I can't. Then stay. His voice cracked. Stay, and we'll figure out how to live with it. You be Dr. Clark at the hospital, saving every life you can. And here, you be Naomi who loves a killer. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all we get. That's not enough. That's barely survival. I know, but it's what I'm offering. He pressed his forehead to mine. I love you. I've loved you since you yelled at me for playing music at 2 a.m. and then brought me cookies the next day to apologize. I love you enough to let you go if that's what you need. But I love you too much to pretend I'm someone I'm not. The tears came then, hot and bitter. I love you too. God help me, Minjun, but I do.
Then stay.
Please. Stay. I kissed him, tasting salt and desperation and the impossible choice I'd already made. When I pulled back, I was steady, decided. I'll stay, but I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't lie to me again. Don't pretend. Don't try to protect me from what you are. If I'm going to live in your world, I need the truth. All of it. Even when it destroys me. I promise. We sat on that bathroom floor until my shift called, until the real world dragged me back to the hospital where I could pretend to be just Dr. Clark, saving lives and maintaining the illusion of normalcy. But when I came home 16 hours later, covered in other people's blood and exhausted to my bones, Minjun was waiting. And despite everything, despite the lies, the violence, the moral compromise that stained my soul, I walked into his arms. Because sometimes love doesn't save you. Sometimes it just makes you willing to drown beautifully. Subscribe if you're not on the side of monsters. The rest already made their choice.